Now, the first story, as we said, of Surah Al-Kahf is the story of the men of the cave. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the mention of that from ayah number 9 in Surah Al-Kahf. Where Allah ta'ala says, أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا, which translates to mean, have you thought that the companions of the cave and the inscription were among our signs a wonder? That the people of the cave, do you think that there was something amazing? Do you think it was something miraculous? Later we'll see that it is not something miraculous. Because we'll see that the people of the cave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused them to sleep for 307 years. 309 years, sorry. Was Dadu Tis'a, 309 years. And then Allah caused them to come back to life, to wake up after 309 years. Maybe someone will say, this is amazing. This is, the one who caused the people to die and their bodies to be disintegrated. And then He will cause them to come back to life and resurrected on the Day of Judgment. Is this too hard for Him? It's not hard for Him. Do you think it's amazing? People may find it amazing, but if you know the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will not amaze you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. When these youth, إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ, the first thing that we learn about the people of the cave is that they were youth, they were young men. And many of the time it is the young who have the courage and the vitality to carry the faith. And this is why it's very important for the young people to understand that their position in Islam is something very important. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story of these young men and their sacrifice. It's not that they're young, they're insignificant, or they're not important. Every person is important in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala depending on their faith and their piety and their sacrifice. So these days, young people are seen as, they're still young, you're still young, you're still young. Can't do anything important. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inspiring the young people that you can do something great and you can show your faith in a great way. So much so that Allah mentioned these young people in the Quran. So Allah says, إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. When the youths retreated to the cave and they said, O Lord, grant us from yourself mercy. Another thing that we learn is that these young men, when they went and retreated into the cave, they made dua. And how important it is to make dua. And what did they ask for? They asked for mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They didn't make dua, oh Allah save us, protect us, make us survive, destroy our enemies. No. What they're interested in is getting mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How that happens, they leave it up to Allah. آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. And prepare for us from our affair right guidance. Guide us to the right way. To make sure that we're doing the right thing. And this shows their mature mentality. Looking and asking for mercy from Allah and for them to be guided. Oh Allah, guide me. Because there are many young people who think that they know it all. I don't need to be guided. I guide people. What are you talking about? This is not the right mentality to have. Always a person should feel that they need guidance from Allah. Oh Allah, guide me to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. Not that I have this arrogance. I know what I'm doing. I don't want to listen to the advice of the elders. I don't want to listen to the advice of the sheikhs. No. Have humility that you're always in need of guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what the people of the Kahf, they did. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. Allah then cast a sleep over their ears within the cave for a number of years. Now, I will just give you general sort of gist of the story is that the people of the cave lived in a society where they had taken other than Allah as a Lord to be worshipped. And from what it seems, from the verses, and the proof of that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about those who claim that Allah has a son. So in the beginning of the verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا. And that this revelation, this Quran, this surah is a warning against those who claim that Allah has taken upon himself a son. They have no knowledge of this. ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم. Nor do their forefathers have knowledge of this. Where did they get this from? كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم. Such a large word, how dare it come out of them? How dare you say such a thing about Allah? إن يقولون إلا كذبا. They say nothing but lies. They say nothing but a lie. So what it seems, so this is very early on in Surah Al-Kahf, and then Allah mentions the story of Ashab Al-Kahf. So it seems like the people were of those who claim that Allah has a son and would worship their false claim of who is the son of God besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so these young men, they rejected this. As many people do. As many young people especially. And we live in a society where there is a lot of people come from Christian backgrounds, Christian homes. And many of them, they tell us, that always felt that, that believing that Jesus is God or the Son of God, it didn't sit well with me. This is what people say, what people experience. And then when they find out about Islam, many people have told me that, I didn't find Islam is something new, but rather Islam is what I believed in this whole time, but I just didn't know it. And so when I accepted Islam, it's like I've come to what I've always really believed. And this is the nature of people. To reject the worship of any created being and to worship the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alone. And many people say, even though I was raised as a Christian and went to Catholic school, whatever, and I used to go to Sunday school, but whenever I prayed, I would pray only to God. I wouldn't pray, to Jesus or whatever. I would pray only to God. So the reason why I'm saying this is to draw parallels between what I've experienced, and probably many of you with experience with people who come from that similar background and who feel a detachment from the common belief and common practice of the people in their town or their city or in their community or their environment. So this is not something new. This is something that occurred with the Ashab al-Kahf. That these young men, even though many of the tafsirs say that these young men did not know each other before. It's not as if that they were friends and they conspired, they were like rebels and they just want to, some people just like going against the community and causing a chaos. But they weren't like that, they weren't troublemakers. And many of the tafsir say or suggest that these people came from high class families who they're, from wealthy families or from families that came from high reputable positions or even from the religious establishment. But these young men, they felt that the belief and the practices and the worship of their community was wrong. So there was a festival where they would go out, the entire community would go out and celebrate the worship, this false worship. And so what these young men did is they did not want to attend this celebration in this festival because what it was celebrating, what it was worshipping, they felt was wrong. So what they did, as I said, they didn't know each other. So one of them removed himself from that gathering. The other one removed himself. The third one removed himself until they found themselves gathered together away from the people. And then they started asking each other, why aren't you with the people? no, I don't believe in what they're doing. Hey, I don't believe in it too. I don't believe in it too. So it all came, subhanAllah, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How Allah guided their hearts, and it wasn't something planned, wasn't something that they colluded, or they conspired, or they rebelled. It wasn't something that they had intended to do. Just each one by one, and they just found themselves together. And they knew that if their city found out that they hadn't taken part in the celebration, they would question them. And they would, put them under pressure and even torture them and persecute them to force them to come back, to join in the worship, force them to worship. And this isn't something as well that only happened once. It's happened in many times in history, like for example in the Spanish Inquisition, where they would test people and see, are you really a Muslim or are you a Christian? Prove that you're a Christian. And so Muslims would hide their faith. Some Muslims in Spain, in Andalusia, would hide their faith, and they would put up crosses. No, they would make sure that they would, go and worshipping the cross. They would go and watch them at Fajr time, make sure that they're not waking up and praying Fajr secretly. Making sure they're not making wudu. If they found them washing in a certain way, how the Muslims wash for wudu, they would persecute them, they would capture them and say, see, you're a Muslim, and they would kill them. This is something known in history that happened. The Spanish Inquisition, where they forced people into Christianity. Even when people converted, they still were not happy, and they would force them to eat pig. Prove that you're not a Muslim, because they know how, Muslims would not dare to have pig because it's something that is forbidden. They would force them to eat the flesh of pig to prove that they are not Muslim. So imagine, that they would go through this. Why are you guys not, joining in the festivals? That must mean that you don't believe in our God. So they would persecute them, believe and submit and worship and bow down to our gods. And if they refuse, they would torture them until they return them. And maybe a person cannot sustain that torment, and he would just crumble, and he would just worship just for the sake of it. There's many people that are tested in their faith even today. They're scared to come to the mosque. Why? No, I don't want my son to come to the mosque. Because, the ASIO is watching all the mosques, and I don't want him to have, And so they're scared. Or a Muslim man would not want to show that he is a Muslim, and maybe he shaves his beard and he changes his name, and a Muslim woman doesn't want to show that she is Muslim. She'd maybe take off her hijab and change her name and reject her Muslim identity because she fears the pressure and the scrutiny, the criticism in the society against Muslims. So we are going through some measure of that. So the people of Ashab al-Kahf, they excluded themselves from the celebration and from the festivals of their people. And they feared that their people, if they were to find out that they didn't attend that celebration and that worship, that they would capture them, they would torture them, and they would force them to recant and reject their faith, and they may weaken and really reject their faith and worship, the false worship, just for the sake of their, keeping themselves alive, or so they're not bothered and tortured or even killed. They didn't want to dare giving up their faith and dying as disbelievers, because that would mean eternal damnation in the hellfire in the hereafter. And everything would be lost. What is the use of living in life if a person does not die upon faith? And that's what they feared. So they went, this group of boys, and they went, young men, they went and they hid in a cave, thinking that, they can escape from their people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had other plans. He wanted to make them a sign and a miracle for all generations after. And He caused them to fall asleep. And with them, they had a dog. They had a dog with them. This dog, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it sit at the entrance to the cave, So anyone who came looking for them would see the dog and would get scared and would leave them undisturbed. So this is a quick summary of the story of Ashab al-Kahf. There's a lot of the details that perhaps we'll go through on another occasion, but suffice us to say what we have said today. And whatever of good we have said, then it is from Allah. What we have said of mistake, then it is from me, from the shaitan, and Allah and His Messenger are free from that. Allah Ta'ala alam, wa sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
فبالله كم تستطب القروح ويبرأ جروح الكسير الجريح وينشط ذاك السقيم العليل وقد كان بالسقم دهرا طريح.